We often talk about movement as medicine, but what happens when one man takes that seriously enough to walk over 2 million steps in 30 days? For Kwame Terra, that wasn't just a personal challenge, it was a call to action and the beginning of a national movement. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies behind living a longer, healthier, and more purposeful life. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, an exercise physiologist with a passion for making science simple and life better as we age. This conversation will help you see walking, community health, and your own daily choices through a new lens, one that turns personal grit into collective impact, a path to aging well. Kwame, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. Let's start with the big headline. Over 2 million steps in 30 days. What inspired you to pursue that challenge, and what did it take mentally and physically to achieve it?
Yeah, the inspiration actually started about a year before. So as you know, I run the Bear Health platform, and on this platform we do monthly steps trackers, monthly steps challenges, where the community just kind of, for no incentives or anything, just compete with one another to see who can take the most steps each month, just to improve their own health and well-being. And I had actually asked one of my users, who was also kind of a team member working with us in different capacities, if he would help me prepare to take 1 million steps in 30 days to raise $1 million for Bear Health. So this is May 2024. And so he basically is trying to develop the strategy. How many steps do you have to take per day? When should you walk? Based on your work schedule and everything, to accomplish 1 million steps in 30 days. Again, that's about 15 miles of walking per day, 33,000 steps per day, 5 hours or so. And so he'd wake up early in the morning, get a 2-hour walk in. Obviously he'd cover some ground throughout the day, at work, and then he would go do another 2-hour walk in the evening. And that was pretty much how he got it. Well, it's a 54-year-old man, and he ended up losing 20 pounds and getting taken off his blood pressure medication as a result of that challenge. And again, this was all, motivated by a campaign to raise money, but we never even really got around to the money. And he was just having such a transformative experience with the steps, and he was just raving about it everywhere. He passes me the baton in June, and I do 1 million steps in 30 days myself. The next month, another user who had participated in one of our major challenges at the beginning of the year said, "Hey, do you have any other challenges, coming up? Because, it doesn't even have to have a major incentive or anything like that. I'm just looking for something to do." I was like, "Well, do you want to try to do 1 million steps in 30 days? And he said, "Why not?" And so he did it in 28 days. He lost like 25 plus pounds.
Oh, wow.
2 more users did it in August, another one in October. And then we all just got to talking. Like, "Hey, what do you think the world record is? Do you think any of us could go after it?" So that's how it started, relatively organically. I don't think that, I can guarantee that last year, the beginning of the year, and the previous 30 years of my life, I wasn't thinking about breaking the world record for the most steps in 30 days. But because walking had become such a powerful part of our culture and a powerful way to help people transform their health, just made sense. And it's super accessible, right? Something that people can really wrap their heads around. And so it was maybe late March of this year. I knew I wanted to do it. I wanted to go after the world record at some point this year. Exactly when was still to be determined. And I was at an event, and they were talking about like marketing and influencer marketing and how to become an influencer. And I'm like, well, actually, maybe this is my moment. Maybe this is when I go after the Steps Challenge, as we're getting ready to prepare for the official launch of the Bear Health app this fall. Let me do something to raise some awareness that's aligned with what we do. And so a few days later, it's April, and I'm clocking 67,000 steps a day.
Wow, that's quite a feat. So what were some of the unexpected lessons or turning points during that 30 days?
Yeah, the most surprising thing was how quickly my body was able to adapt to the demand. Again, obviously something that no one's ever done before. I wouldn't say it's the peak of human capacity as it relates to steps in a day, because I still was working. I was working while I was walking, but still, like, if all I was doing was walking and eating and getting treatment, then I could have gone farther than I did. But yeah, the very first week was really challenging. Again, body's adjusting to the demand. I'm learning about new parts of my legs that I didn't even know were there, because something new would start hurting each day. I was starting to experience sharp pains in my head because just wasn't fueling properly and hydrating properly. And again, so I eat a whole food plant-based diet, and I eat about once a day, so intermittent fasting. And so I'm not often that hungry, just, at baseline. But now now in this challenge, I'm burning like 2,500 calories a day. But I'm still not necessarily feeling hungry. Now, as soon as I start eating, I can, I can put everything down. But again, still like being intentional about that. So I was experiencing sharp pains in my head, even when I was just like laying down. So I'm like, getting kind of concerned about, the risk here, because, I want to do this. This is an exciting challenge. People seem to be excited by it, inspired by it. Every day I would be posting my total step count from that day, and then like the cumulative step count, for the challenge. And even myself, like looking at that each day, I'm like, that's crazy. I'm the one doing it. I'm just looking at it like, that's actually insane. This is kind of crazy. But so yeah, that was the first thing. It was really challenging in the first 5 days. That was kind of to be expected, but it's always a little bit rougher than than you might have anticipated. And then again, the second thing was like my body adjusting after about 5 or 6 days to the demand, and a lot of the initial fears that I had around like continuing started to subside, and I was pretty well ahead of pace for the record, which is also encouraging. Because again, I'm clocking 67,000 steps a day, 30 to 35 miles of walking per day. And literally I wake up at 5 a.m., go on a walk for 4 hours, get back, shower, head to the office, make sure everything is good, go to the fitness center, walk for 4 hours, go back to the office. I mean, that was actually crazy, walking around the fitness center. It's like a 150-meter loop, and I'm just around and around and around. And then in the evenings, I would go out somewhere. Like I would walk to a friend's house. They walk with somebody. Walking with people really helped. Just the time go by, and even when I had like several hours of walking left after walking with them, it just made it a bit more worthwhile. And we know that spending time with people is essential to health and well-being. So yeah, I walked to festivals. I walked from the university to the festival, but it's like an hour walk just to go to the festival and then walk back. And again, I was just walking pretty much everywhere because I literally didn't have time to do anything else. I was on my feet for about 14 hours per day.
That's insane because, I mean, the fact that you did that many miles on just in general, but doing it on top of working a full job, that's just incredible. I mean, I can't imagine doing that.
Yep. Yeah.
But it shows.
I do have a bit of flexibility with my job as I own my own company. So
yeah, but still, I mean, you got to work, some hours. I mean, it's not like you can just totally blow it all off and let somebody else do all the work.
Right.
So that's pretty impressive. It should be a good example to people that, when we talk about getting minimum of 10,000 steps a day. Come on, you have time, you can do it.
Right.
It's not that hard.
Right. Yeah. Definitely puts things into perspective for people. I received one message from a friend when I finished, and it said, great job, way to get it done. You inspired us all. I'm out of excuses. The last part, I'm out of excuses, really, really hit me because that's really where I want people to get to. Like, it's not that, the excuses that people feel like they have aren't, reasonable, right? But it's just not an excuse. There really are none. If someone can manage to walk 15 hours a day and get their work done and have relationships. I went to my cousin's concert performance at a thrift store. I went to a festival. I was doing all of these things and running a startup and walking 30 miles a day. And so now, granted, it's not something I recommend on a regular basis at all, but you can squeeze an hour and a half of walking in.
Yeah, it's really not that hard. I teach my students about opportunity costs. We all have that same 24-hour day. What are you doing with those hours? And there's obviously things that are not negotiable. You got work hours, you got to take time to eat, you got to take time for social connections. But when you want to fit exercise in there, it's just, okay, well, how much time are you spending just scrolling on your phone? How much time are you playing video games or watching Netflix and doing all that stuff?
Yeah.
You can watch Netflix and walk. You have a treadmill, which,
right.
We'll talk a little bit about accessibility and some of those things here in a little bit. But
yeah, no, you bring up a good point. Sorry to cut you off. I have some of my students often tell me like they just don't feel like they have enough time to do everything. And so then I'll stop whatever I'm doing. I'll go to this whiteboard behind me and I'll write 168. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, that's the number of hours you have in a week. And so how many hours are you in class? Okay, we do that. Subtract that. How many hours? Let's say we want you to sleep 8 hours a day. Nobody's sleeping 8 hours a day, but let's give you 8 hours a day of sleep. Now you have eating and showering and all these, again, basic. By the time we put their entire schedule together, the majority of people have about a full day's worth of doing nothing, left over.
Yeah.
5 hours a day where they could be idle and still hit everything, working out, sleeping, class, studying. Like, where's that time going? It's there. It's just a matter
Yeah,
of
I was thinking, it's like, it makes you wonder, what am I doing with all that time? Well, tell us about Bear Health. What is it, and what problem are you aiming to solve through the platform?
Yeah, so the problem that we're aiming to solve is the life expectancy gap between Black people and the rest of the population. So there's about a 6-year life expectancy gap right now. Average life expectancy in the Black community is about 72 years. Rest of the population, rest of the country is 78 years. And sometimes when I tell people that, 6 years doesn't sound like a lot to them. Especially, if you've lived 72, right? To most of us, that's a long time. So what's another 6? But when you extrapolate that across the entire Black population, about 50 million people, we're losing about 268 million years of time. Time is our most valuable asset. And so that's time without work, right, growing our wealth. That's time without investing. That's time without our family passing down wisdom. And that's really the root of it all. And obviously, we're a health company because what's driving these disparities are these conditions like early death caused by hypertension, type 2 diabetes, many cancers. So we have to address that. But it's really about getting time back so that we can achieve, our maximum potential. I always reference a story from my mom whose good friend lost her husband to a stroke at age 46.
Oh, wow.
Leaving their 13-year-old son to have to grow up without a father. Like we can't quantify the implications of that story, and that's not an isolated story. This is happening across the board, right? Children are losing their parents early in life, and then now they are just less prepared and less apt to navigate life. And in a country that has already shown that it does things to make it harder for certain people, and so that's really the problem that we're trying to solve, and it starts with our app. Now our app is about health awareness, health literacy. So most of us don't know our current health status. Most of us aren't aware of the short and long-term implications of that. And so I wanted to communicate that clearly to the community. And so we have a health score, kind of like a credit score for your health, something that, again, most people can wrap their heads around that. Health is very complex. As you know, there are several metrics that mean a bunch of different things to individuals when they get these metrics from their doctors, or how many steps am I supposed to be taking a day for the best health, right? So instead of like having everybody track 100 different metrics around their health, we simplified into a number that represents their relative risk, relative health risk, right? So the higher your score, the lower your risk. The lower your score, the higher your risk. Basically, if you have a low score, you're more likely to have a significant health event on a given day compared to someone who has a high score. And the score changes in relative real time. So it's not a static score where you do this one time and then maybe a year later you check in again. If you go on a run one day, your score is going to go up. If you're inactive for a week, your score is going to go down. It'll let you know you're trending down. And that real-time feedback is important so that we can start drawing the connection between our lifestyle, our day-to-day life, and our health outcomes. And that was the first idea I had when I came up with this during the COVID-19 pandemic, and everyone was having severe outcomes with COVID-19, but it was mainly preying on people who had these comorbidities whose immune systems were compromised by conditions that we know are preventable.
If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing, and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below, and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you, and now back to the podcast. One of the things that we really try to challenge on this podcast is the idea of inaccessibility to exercise and longevity. And I like to rip on the billionaires with all their longevity protocols and their biohacks, and buy this supplement that's going to cost you hundreds of dollars a month. What are the obstacles to health and longevity for underserved communities, particularly the African American communities?
Yeah, I mean, there are tons. That said, it is possible to be healthy Black in America. My grandfather is 87 years old, doesn't have a single chronic health condition. Yeah. Grew up in the Jim Crow South here in Louisiana. Again, that's not to say that those aren't valid reasons not to be in your best health. It's your job, your responsibility to again, reach your full potential, become the healthiest version of yourself for you, your family, your community, despite the challenges. And so I try to draw on folks who have gone through the same conditions as a significant amount of the Black community to share information and their stories. So again, because it addresses the excuses that folks have. But access to care, as far as like healthcare goes, that there's definitely significant issues there, like availability, not just can people afford it? Because when you look at access, there are three components, and the third component is actually the one that we are going to be working on the most, and I think kind of what you're referencing here. So there's availability, right? So are there healthcare centers around? Are there grocery stores around? Are there walking places that you can walk nearby? Affordability, right? So cool, there's a clinic, there's a grocery store, but can I afford the food or the services, at those institutions? And then the third one is, and I don't even know if this is a technical term, but desirability. Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to eat healthy foods? Do you want to get screened? I think for the most part, and this may be I don't know the phrase, but for lack of a better term, hot take, if you will, but on the whole, healthcare and health in general is affordable and accessible, affordable and available. Sorry, but it's not necessarily desired, which is another representation of the systemic injustice over time, right? These things we were forced to prioritize things that weren't necessarily related to this, or we weren't educated, right? We had education stripped from us, throughout our time here, and so again, it's an awareness thing. First, you have to even know that there's a problem. Then you have to know that it's a problem that you should solve. And then you have to, in some sense, make it convenient. Again, this accessibility component to where people actually do it. Because it's hard to switch from what you grew up on, fast food diets all your life, and then go eat a whole food plant-based diet or eat just a cleaner diet in general. That's really hard for people to change change different aspects of how they cook. And it's really that friction that is in the way. It's not that people can't afford to buy beans and rice, and these are some of the cheapest foods, on the planet.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of the afford. It's I don't want to eat that. I want to eat this, and I get it. How can you compete with McDonald's burgers? And again, I know these things, but it's hard to compete with what the environments have promoted.
Yeah, so it really is a multifaceted issue. I mean, I teach at a university that we're considered a Hispanic serving institution. So about 25% of our students are Hispanic. I want to say we only have about 10% of our students are Black. Mm-hmm. Individuals from the African American community, and then we have the rest predominantly white, mixture of city, rural, and those types of things. So it's a pretty diverse but not diverse culture. Mm-hmm. But trying to educate my students and understanding that it's not about just simply saying, hey, yeah, you got to lose weight, you got to change your diet, you got to do these things to get healthy. You got to address how I label it as a kind of a biomechanical psychosocial problem.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot more to it, and it's interesting kind of listening to you. I've always put a lot more emphasis. We got to make it accessible to the individuals. If we don't develop communities that people feel safe to walk in, they have access to walking, they have access to more grocery stores and healthy produce than to McDonald's. And I mean, where I live, there's probably more fast food restaurants per capita than there are grocery stores.
Yeah, we call those food swamps. They're food deserts, right? But those are food swamps where the ratio of fast food restaurants to like full service grocery stores is 4 to 1 or greater. And food swamps actually produce worse health outcomes than food deserts.
And then the affordability piece. I mean, I was really proud of myself that when I lived in New York it's actually about 30 years ago now, that I was able to survive on about $25 a week for groceries, mm-hmm. which I thought was pretty good. And that was late 1980 dollars. Mm-hmm. But we had a recent guest on here, Louis Burtis, who really focuses on diabetes reversal. Mm-hmm. And he, like yourself, is on a totally plant-based diet. And he was telling me that, he lived for, I forget how many different weeks that he just challenged himself, and it was like $20 to eat healthy. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's, in today's dollars. So I don't feel so proud about what I did, 30 years ago. But it just speaks to the fact that we tell people it's expensive to eat healthy because you think it's got to be organic, and we start putting meat in the whole thing. Yeah, it gets expensive if you're eating meat, but if you're on a plant-based diet, you can eat really affordable. But it's that education and that willingness to put the time in.
Yeah.
So, I love what you're doing, and I'm sure I'm going to learn so much from this conversation. But I want to backstep a little bit to your bEHRATHON. This sounds like a really bold vision. How does the event work? What are your goals in terms of participation and impact for that program?
Yeah, so the bEHRATHON is going to be our annual run/walkathon for the company. We're actually going to be pushing it back to probably to the spring because the app is the official release of the app is happening in 2 months, and the bEHRATHON is currently scheduled for the end of October, so about 2.5 months. But the timeline between the release and the event is just getting tighter and tighter, to where again, when you first release an app, there's going to be potential kinks and things like that we need to work out. And so we're probably going to push it back to the spring, the same month that I did the 2 million steps as an individual. We're going to try to break the world record for the most people in a virtual run/walk event across multiple venues. The current record is 773,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And our goal is to get 1 million people to move. Now, this is the ultimate objective of the bEHRATHON. Whether we accomplish that in April 2026 or 2027, whatever it may be, that's the ultimate first objective. Can we get 1 million people on our platform, log a mile or more on the same day, and break that record? This year's theme, though, is Bear Health to the Moon, and so that's still going to be a thing, which is kind of like a secondary goal where we're going to try to see if we can cover enough distance as a community on bEHRATHON Day to reach the moon. So the moon is about 239,000 miles away, and on that day, however many users we have on the app, we're going to assign people a distance, based on that. If we have 200,000 people on, everybody only has to walk a mile. If we have 120,000 people on, then everybody's got to do 2. So that's really from when we released the official app in October to the date that we ultimately set for bEHRATHON Day in April. That'll be essentially the campaign. So we'll try to partner with as many, nationwide wellness organizations as possible. There'll be satellite stations for the bEHRATHON, right? So, and the idea is going to be, at least for the campaign anyway, the content will be like us taking off on the release date of the app, trying to reach the moon. And along the way, we'll do some content where it's like we're on our way, but now we're running out of fuel. And so we have to find more partners to get more people on the platform to make it all the way to the moon. And so that'll be kind of like our launch campaign over the next 6 to 8 months or so. Yeah, what I've learned is that you have to take the focus away from the activity. And you don't have to, but for most people, I think we need something bigger than go take 10,000 steps a day. We need some sort of objective that's related to it that ultimately leads to the same outcome of 10,000 steps a day or what have you. But it's way more engaging, and it just makes people feel like it's life. It's not a task that they have to do for their health. For example, yesterday, I ran 24 miles, 24.5 miles. Why? I've never actually done that. Why did I do that? There was a challenge here in New Orleans for between the run clubs where a representative from Nike put on this challenge called the bigger, I forget exactly what it's called, but they just released a new shoe, a new Vomero kind of like regular everyday running shoe, and they wanted to let everybody demo the shoe as a part of a challenge. And so I run a run club, it's called Soul Running. There's another run club called the 504th, another one called Boring Run Club. So from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., however many miles you log in the Vomeros go towards your team's total. I ran 24.5 miles. Another one of my team members ran 30 miles. Another person who had never ran more than 5 miles in a single day ran 23 miles. And our team, though a bit smaller, ended up winning by 15 miles. And it was the best moment. Nobody got paid anything. No one was asked, hey, can you make sure everybody just showed up on their own accord. And that was really a clinic on health engagement, honestly, because people were hurt. Now everybody's ready for the next whatever you call it, the next shoe drop, whatever, next demo. And again, everybody did something that day that they had never done before. Or so many people had done something that day that they had never done before. And those kind of transformative moments open people's minds to what's possible for their health, And that's, the culture that we have here in America is like that you have to become like this gym rat. You have to, wake up at 5 a.m., hop in the cold plunge, go to the gym, do your thing, get back home, take your supplements like you were saying earlier, sit in the sauna, get your red light therapy. I'm not saying all these things aren't going to be advancing health for us. It's not going to increase longevity. But the overwhelming majority of us don't need to do all of those things. We're treating those things almost like medicine, or like we treat medication. Like it's going to fix the problem.
Right.
I think those things can certainly enhance your health. But if you don't move every day, if you don't eat right, it doesn't matter how much red light therapy you do. It doesn't matter how many ice baths you take. The blue zones, I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really go to the gym. They're the healthiest people in the world. Like it always confuses me why we look to our blueprint as the blueprint for health when there are tons of populations around the world that are outliving us by 20 years, and we don't look to them first. And when my friends ask me all the time, where do I get my protein from, and like how am I going to stay healthy on a plant-based diet, I'm like, the longest lived people in the world eat 95 to 100% plant-based diets. I'm just going to get it from the same place that they get it from, the plants. And so, again, there are ego things. There are just propaganda, right, in our culture that has made health less accessible. But it's available and affordable on the whole. There are definitely cases where people literally can't afford food. There are cases where there aren't any clinics at all nearby, and that does have a direct effect on health outcomes. But on the whole,
and I find in those situations too where people can't afford food, we don't support them very well in terms of helping them get access to it. I gripe all the time when I see these. On the news, we'll see people that are doing food drives, and you're carrying these boxes of food, and what's right on top of that box is a loaf of white bread. It's like, if we think it's so important for people to have adequate nutrition for their health, why can't we invest a little bit? And it doesn't have to be expensive quality stuff, but give, bags of beans and rice and, good, healthy, quality food so that people have the opportunity to take that and put it into their bodies and improve their life. But instead, we're just going to, let's give them the cheapest food we have. Church does a food drive. Everybody just, I got this can of green beans that I haven't eaten, so I'm just going to throw that in the box. It's like, no, let's try and do better.
No, yeah, it makes you wonder what the objective is. For me, when you have a full-fledged system that is essentially funding the food that we are eating, especially in underserved communities, through SNAP and benefits like that, it makes you wonder what the goal is, right? To me, if you have the wherewithal as a system to create health and to make sure that people have what they need to improve their health, and it's not provided, in fact, the opposite is, it just makes you wonder, what the actual objective is.
Because it is easy to provide health for our communities. I mean, I see no obstacles to it, and as rich as we are, the fact that we only have one blue zone in this country. And, you talk about the standard American diet, and the acronym is SAD. That's pretty sad to me. We are the ones that are saying we're providing food across the globe, and yet it's not food.
No, these are food products.
Crap.
These are food products. That's what I call them. Food, what was I going to say? Interestingly, people who live in food deserts, right, where they say food isn't accessible, or they say healthy food isn't accessible, they are actually more likely to be obese and overweight. And where there is less food, there's more obesity, and it's because of the food that's being consumed. It's such high calorie, high processed food that people are over consuming, because these are also addictive foods, right? They're not just a snack here. They're a snack with a bunch of components in it that make you want more and more and more and more of that. And it's just it's hard to fight against that as an individual, especially because the rest of your environment is doing the same thing. If you try to go off against the grain, now you on some level probably are having to cook for yourself in your house with your family. People are looking at you like, what are you doing? Your plate looks super sad too. Have you ever, I don't know if you've ever been out with a group of friends and like ordered some sort of makeshift plant-based meal from the restaurant because they don't have anything on the menu, and then they come out with like a few pieces of lettuce and like a piece of bread, and it's just like this is not doing a good job to like promote why people should eat healthy, and it's hard. That's the hardest part.
So what does your daily plant-based diet look like? I'm getting a little off topic, but
Sure.
I'm interested because I'm trying to shift to a much more I say more plant-centered. I don't like the term flexitarian because flexitarian to me just kind of sounds like, yeah, you want to be a vegan, but you just don't have enough committal strength.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I always thought flexitarian was an interesting term. Flexitarian to me is the same person that says, I try to eat healthy.
Right.
Sometimes, and when people say I try to, it means like they definitely aren't. And again, it's no problem. And you don't have to prove anything to me. You don't have to prove anything to you. Like, it's your life. This is your choice. But, if it's important to you, like, actually commit. So every day I would typically start with a handful of nuts. So when you look at, I literally go off of the Blue Zone guidelines, except I don't eat any meat at all. On the Blue Zone guidelines, they say that Blue Zones eat maybe like meat 3 or 4 times a month, poultry, fish a couple times a month, minimal eggs. Again, they're still eating these animal products in some areas, but the volume is so small compared to, they're not doing it. They're definitely not eating meat every day. Right? The Blue Zones aren't eating meat every day. Maybe again once a week. Or even if they are eating it every day, it's like shreds of meat within their stew, right? It's not like a whole, I don't even know what the normal size of meat people have in it. Is it 3 ounces, 1 ounce? Like, is that a normal serving size?
Technically normal serving size is 4 ounces.
Okay. Yeah, they're not eating
But
4
most
ounces.
Americans that are eating meat are probably eating anywhere from probably 6 to 8 or more ounces in a meal.
Okay. Yeah, they're not doing that at all. And so again, it's not that you have to be plant-based to eat healthy or to be healthy. It's the volume, the sheer volume of animal products that we're consuming. It's not how we evolved, and we adopted it too quickly, and it's causing problems. After I'm done snacking on my nuts throughout the day, I'll have some form of beans, rice, potatoes, mixed vegetables, some sort of salad with that as well, and just mix it up. Again, different variations of beans. So I'll do chickpeas one day, I'll do black beans one day, I'll do quinoa one day, I'll do brown rice one day, and I'm also not a tyrant with myself about this. Right? If I'm out with friends and there's like a impossible burger option, like I'll have it. Like, I know what I'm doing on a regular basis. That's what we have to make sure we get right. It's like what we're doing on a regular basis, because that's ultimately what shapes your health. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, I'm eating like one full meal a day. I'll snack on nuts, pretty high calorie, high protein, high healthy fat, and then I'll have a bigger meal, probably like 1,500 or so calories in the evening, and I try to eat before, at least like 4 or so hours before I'm going to bed. Like, the more time between your last meal and your bedtime, the better your sleep will be. And your sleep is actually the most important factor in your health outside of like purpose and community. I'll give those two the first, but after that, you need to sleep. If you have to choose between sleep and exercise, go to sleep. Right? If you have to choose between eating and sleeping, go to sleep. If you can like manage to stay asleep despite being hungry. But your body needs time to rest and repair, and if while you're sleeping you're digesting, it's not, or your body rests and repair during sleep, and that's pretty obvious. But if your body's working while you're trying to sleep, you're not going to sleep as efficiently, and then therefore you're not going to feel as good when you wake up in the morning. Our bodies are bombarded with a variety of toxins daily in our food, in our water, in our air, and there's not much we can do about that. But when we take a break or when our bodies get to take a break from work, right, during sleep, it can go in and kind of clean up the system, right? They call this during the fasting state or autophagy, where basically your body is breaking down old damaged cells and proteins and turning them into newer, younger ones. But most of us are eating around the clock. We never get a break, and most of us are diseased.
I was kind of curious about the, eating one meal a day and it being plant-based and being able to, the quantity of protein you need to get in and I think we're learning a lot, and I'm having to unlearn a lot about protein, how much protein we actually need to build muscle and to survive. But, it would seem like it'd be a lot more difficult to consume enough calories when you're eating plant-based, because you're going to have a lot of beans, a lot of fiber and vegetables in that, to get those calories in, you're going to be stuffing yourself. I can't imagine eating. For me, I'd probably need about 3,000 calories to maintain weight, probably a little bit less if I'd want to.
So you're burning about 3,000 a day?
Yeah, and I'm also, I weigh 225 right now, and so I probably should be cutting back to about 2,500 calories a day. But even to get that in, in one meal is
that'd be
challenging.
pretty challenging in one meal.
Yeah.
I don't.
But you're eating nuts through the day, so
Yeah.
I see now that that's where you're getting a little bit more of those calories, and you're getting healthy fats, healthy oils.
Mm-hmm.
My problem is I snack on nuts and eat a couple extra meals a day, which doesn't help me much. I'm trying to balance that all out a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I say skip breakfast or skip dinner, like one of the two. That can go a long way. The average American, maybe in the 1950s, was consuming about 2,500 calories a day, 2,200 calories a day. Now the average American is consuming about 32 to 3,600. And we're not moving more, by the way.
No, we're moving less.
We're moving far less. And so as far as the obesity epidemic goes, like that explains it simply. Right? It's not that suddenly we are just undisciplined, right? Everything about our environments have changed, and just like any other human beings, we fall victim to our environments. But yeah, lots of things to unlearn, especially as it relates to protein. If you eat enough calories and you're just a normal person that is just trying to get through life as a regular person, maybe you have a minimal fitness program where you're exercising 30 minutes a day, something like that. If you're eating enough calories, you will get enough protein from the plants. Again, I'm not saying every, like lettuce, maybe you would, like if you ate 3,000 calories of lettuce, which I don't even know how possible that is, maybe you wouldn't.
I don't think it is possible.
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't get enough protein. But if you're eating enough calories of a balanced plant-based diet, you will get enough protein. Now, if you're trying to bulk, right, for like you're some sort of weightlifter or something like that, I do think like you can afford to have a little more. And I highly recommend reading a book called Proteinaholic by Dr. Garth Davis. I believe that's his name. He's a plant-based bariatric surgeon in Houston, and he wrote this book called Proteinaholic because he used to be on the other side of the protein conversation, but now he talks about how we essentially are over-consuming protein, obviously in the American diet. And so he recommends, I forget what it was, but for me, so I'm 140, and I think he said something along the lines of like 50 to 60 grams of protein per for me, right? So it's about a gram of protein per kilogram of weight. So I think I'm about around 60 or so in kilograms. Again, I don't remember exactly. But as an athlete, so I guess I'm an endurance athlete at this point, and maybe a little bit more. Maybe like 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram. But this need for a gram per pound of body weight or even more, he doesn't believe that there's any evidence supporting that leads to any measurable difference in your muscle gain compared to eating less. And my protein levels personally are above average. And because we kind of equate or conflate muscle size and mass to protein levels in the body, and they're not necessarily the same thing. I'm a smaller guy, I run a lot, so that's part of it too, but my protein levels from my diet are fine.
I teaching exercise science for now, it's been 27 years since I finished my PhD. I feel like I'm having to uneducate myself and change how I'm teaching in just so many ways. And gentleman we had on the podcast, I think it was the end of last year, his name is Dr. Robert Lufkin. He wrote the book Lies I Taught in Medical School.
Oh, wow.
And and I'm feeling like, I probably need to write a book, The Lies I Taught in Exercise Science, because there's been so much change over the years. I mean, for one thing, when I was in when my master's program, everything was about high carb and high cardio exercise. We didn't teach about resistance training, and we didn't teach about the quality of carbs or the protein in the carbs. And we also, as we started shifting into weight training, it's high protein is important for building muscle and for athletic performance and everything. And yet, you see the longevity research, lower protein gives us longer life, more plant-based gives us longer life. And we're leaning into keto now, which is stupid. And there's just so many things that I feel, especially doing this podcast, talking to people like yourself, and countless other guests on recently that have kind of been turning the screws on me, like plant-based, which is a hard adjustment for me.
Yeah.
But and I've been of that mindset that you can't possibly get enough protein eating plant-based, because we talk about it's incomplete proteins. And the reality is it's not incomplete proteins. They're just a different balance. And when you look at leucine being such an important protein for turning on mTOR in the muscle to be able to maintain muscle mass. But that's also protein that increases our risk of cancers and other health conditions. Too much leucine also shortens our lifespan. So it's like there's a lot to move through in this process. And, your goal in trying to educate, your community is a monumental task because where are they getting the information? And there's so much probably unlearning that you have to teach in order to get communities that are healthier.
Yeah, which is, that's a good point. It is a very tall task to get people to change their one, first become aware, then understand the need, and then actually commit to the change and stick to the change.
Right.
I can only do that probably with like 12 people a month, or 12 people a year. And I feel like that might be extreme. So what we are shifting to instead for our solution is how do we make people aware? It's pretty easy. Get them to download the app and learn their health score. And then how do we connect them to a community of people who are already doing this, right? In a sense, like using the community to hack the learning curve. Like all of these aspects that we're talking about, again, it's really complex and you need lots of professionals sitting down with individuals educating, and that's just not super scalable or efficient. And so what we do instead now is, again, we make people aware of where they currently stand with their health. We help them develop an objective, right? So you have to have the objective of like being healthy or running more or what have you. And then we connect them with a community that's already doing that or is already on their way. So, for example, with running, let's say someone wants to run more. They saw a post online, they see a bunch of people that they would like to be around running, so now they want to run more. Okay, cool. You want to run more. Next, you need some sort of time-bound test of your ability to run now, or test or measure of whatever your new objective is. I want to be healthier. So 3 months from now, you need to have a test of that health or a test of that running capacity. And then third, you just need a community of people who are already doing it. Because being around them, you'll be able to borrow essentially the energy and the perspective and the forward thinking of of that community, and then you'll just kind of start naturally. Oh, well, all of a sudden I'm eating a plant-based diet more, or all of a sudden I'm running more because my friends are over here running and my community's over here running, and it doesn't feel like, again, this task. Our run club meets up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. People actually don't like running. Right, most of us don't like running. In fact, we were talking the other day about how running isn't really like a game. Running and track, these aren't games. These aren't something that you play. These are things that you do. Compared to like playing baseball, it's not a game at all, and it's primarily suffering. But people who had not run before are getting up every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. to be around people that they do like, and they're willing to do something that they don't as a result. And so that's what we're really trying to get efficient about now. So there are tons of communities nationwide, right? And more coming around every day. Maybe it's 20 people in this community or 10 people in this community. And maybe this community is about, painting. And maybe this community is about meditation. And again, everybody's different. We need to have space and environments for everyone. So how do we bring people onto our platform, help them understand their current health status, identify what their objectives are, and then connect them to a community? To me, that's the solution, really. And then overall, how do we essentially create a community where ultimately everybody promotes that in their different ways? And we solve the problem seamlessly as opposed to, a one-on-one service.
So how does the app work to do that? You're in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the app is not intended to just serve people locally, that you want this to be, I would imagine, even international. Mm-hmm. It'd be the loftiest of goals, yep. Right? So how does it work to do that? That it connects these people far distant from where you are to communities in, insert small town USA.
Yeah. So we are focused primarily in New Orleans to start. We are still on our beta app for the next 2 months. So we've been on our beta app for about 18 months now. Have about 2,500 users, predominantly in New Orleans. Probably about 75-80% of people are in New Orleans. And we've learned a lot, right? These strategies that I'm explaining to you now have come as a result of everything I've learned over the past 18 months. And essentially, we were kind of building our blueprint here. So I've identified one, that people are interested in knowing their health score. Great. I'm glad people are open to finding out that number, maybe more so than they are going to the doctor. Great, because this could be a conduit, right? A first step for that. And then we list resources in our directory. So Bear Connect is kind of like our directory platform where people can find providers. They can find, again, community meetups, events, and again, making it to where everything is kind of right there in your hand for folks. And then we also host events ourselves, like run club meetups, walk club meetups, hit workout meetups. Again, making fitness and whatnot more accessible and affordable for people. And now that I feel like we've kind of gotten that model down here in New Orleans, and again, we're still more or less pre-launch. We're going to actually be opening up a space called Bear Connect here in New Orleans, where essentially an in real life version of the app, where we'll curate a healthy life calendar where people can swap out 1 or 2 or 3 things that they do per week with one of the things that we offer that serve the same function, but in a health promoting way. And that's essentially going to be our model. We're still testing out the in real life version of things here in New Orleans before we expand. For users who aren't in the city, what we're going to do is we're going to, again, build up this repository of community wellness brands, organizations, meetups, so that when someone comes on the platform in another city, but we don't have a physical presence there, they can find their community. That's really what Bear Connect, like the brand promise of Bear Connect is. It's like, find your community at Bear Connect, or Bear Connect, find your community. And that's how it'll start. And then we also have tons of challenges that take place virtually on the app. And so people have become friends with, competed with complete strangers just because they were going toe-to-toe in a steps challenge in June, And that's really where I would say folks who aren't here can spend the majority of their time kind of connecting with what we do and being able to benefit from what we do is by participating in our virtual challenges. So each month we do a total workout duration tracker, who can work out, essentially spend the most time working out, who can take the most steps, who can cover the most distance, who can run the most miles, and who can burn the most calories. And you're competing against yourself, and you're also competing against others each month. And people are pretty engaged. You get 50 to 100 people engaging in those challenges, each challenge on a monthly basis. And again, we're still early and growing, but it's, again, the seeds of this structure that helps make it to where health is just a part of your life, not some extra task that you have to do. And that doesn't mean that there won't be some individuals who need more than just the wraparound community accountability and the awareness. Some people do need like tailored one-on-one, and we will find them as we engage with our community and be able to either connect them with the services they need for that, or eventually deliver those services ourselves. But to me, the best way to solve the problem is in a way that makes people feel like it's just life. It's not something else to do, because then that's also less work for us as a company over time.
So say we have a viewer or listener in, again, insert city USA, that maybe they're already on a good path to being healthy, but they say, hey, I want to help my community get healthy, get involved. What can they do to grow the app and to grow participation in kind of their own area to make it kind of easier for your app to be successful?
Yeah, the best thing that someone can do to help is, one, download the app themselves. They can download our beta app, search in the Google Play or App Store. It's a DACADO, DACADOO. You can use access code Jeff Armstrong to get in. And then create your account, join a challenge. But if you could also maybe host a challenge within your community, be able to promote a challenge within your community. It could be 10, 20 people, whatever. But just get people involved in that aspect of what we do. Maybe we can work together on an incentive to get people to join, and they will be incentivized, not necessarily who can take the most steps, because sometimes the competition, like for just the top prize, a lot of people won't engage because they just don't think that they're going to be the person. But if it's, you have to join and you have to hit a certain measure that is accessible to most people, but still, hitting a standard that's important for health. So for example, at the beginning of the year, we did a challenge where we gave away 2 tickets to Super Bowl 59 if you completed 59,000 steps in a week. So that's about 7,000 or so steps per day. Again, a good step total, not something, a total that most people aren't hitting every day, but that most people could. So there, every bit gets better. But it's not about who can take the most steps. Although that naturally emerges, right? who can take the most steps, because we are competitive. And I had a 64-year-old lady do 2 million or do 1 million steps last month on the app.
Oh, wow.
It's just, again, what's your excuse?
Let's see. What else haven't I asked you about? The intersection of health equity, technology, and community empowerment is really powerful.
Yeah.
What gives you hope as you do this work?
Yeah, what gives me hope is actually just seeing results from the community. Again, Dr. Eric Griggs lost 20 pounds, got taken off his blood pressure medication. He's kept that weight off. He's kept off the medication. That's what we started this for, to predict, prevent, and reverse the chronic conditions that plague our community. So anytime that happens, like I'm not like, man, we're not far enough along yet. We haven't accomplished our goals. Every single time that happens, I feel like I've accomplished our goal. And if it only happens 5 times in the life of the company, I'll still be proud of that. So those are the things that definitely keep me going, is the stories of people literally walking down or off their medications in a matter of months, and then realizing that that's possible. It's like that shift, again, that's really hard to do, that's really hard to create in an inorganic way, right? Like lecturing to people to make that shift is a bit harder than when they just take on a challenge and they transform themselves. It's a bit more sustainable that way. So that definitely gives me encouragement. Honestly, my work ethic is one of the most encouraging things about this. Is so coming from a public health background, health equity concentration, they talk about this process called community-based participatory research. And basically it's an approach to research and development where you involve the community you aim to develop solutions for in as equal partners in the design and development of these solutions, right? That sense of ownership that people have and input, they know that people like when things are tailored to them, even like obviously on an individual level. Well, there's a principle in startups called customer discovery, and it's literally the same thing. Go talk to people with problems, come up with solutions, and test those solutions with those people. And what makes a successful startup, or what makes a solution successful, right? Because my goal here is to have a successful solution because I want to solve this problem. And what encourages me is having these baseline principles that give me the best chance at achieving that outcome. So my job as a founder is to talk to more people, or as many people as possible, who are dealing with the problem that I'm trying to solve. So Black people dealing with health issues, and then test as many solutions as I can to solve those problems in as condensed a time frame as possible. And I know that I'm doing that. And so that's really encouraging to me. And we are also constantly getting positive feedback from outcomes, specifically also just from like investments and things like that. And so that really that's really encouraging, because again, you have ideas about what you think would be great, and you don't really know if they are until you put them out in reality. And so to be fortunate enough to get positive feedback and see results on solving the problem that we aim to solve, like that's really encouraging. Like we need to be able to recognize measurable progress on our goals to stay like happy and fulfilled as human beings. Yeah. And when you're not getting that, it sucks. And so I'm glad that we're able to get this. So that's been encouraging, because I really enjoy this work. It's not just about the potential for Bear Health to become $1 billion enterprise. I really think that we should solve this problem because we're wasting people and losing time.
So Bear Health, and for the listener and viewer, maybe they haven't seen it, it's spelled small b, capital E, capital H, capital R. Yep. Where does that come from? Yeah,
so BEHR Health stands for the Black Electronic Health Record. So just like a traditional or an EHR system, so it's Black Electronic Health Record. And the goal here, and that's a secondary component of our product. So we have our app, which will just be a health and wellness platform. But then all of our user data goes into the health score report, or the Black Electronic Health Record. And it'll be stratified by city, state, zip code, partnering organization, race, things like that. But this is a 2-part problem, and you can't do one and expect the other and not improve the other and expect the solution to actually take. So there are 2 components to health, right? So we need to raise the awareness, the health literacy of the individual, but we also need to improve the environments to where they're health promoting. If we do one without the other, it's not going to work. If we only improve health literacy and health consciousness, there will be a few people within communities that transform themselves, but they might slip back into the old ways because the environmental pressures are so strong. And if we just improve the environments, not the minds, then the minds will recreate the old environment. So we have to do them both at the same time. And so the app, real-time health education for individuals, and then the health score report is a real-time database of user health insights that we use to inform and drive community health interventions. So we'll see the average health score overall, We'll see the average health score by category, average health score by gender, and then we'll look at these insights on a monthly basis and say, okay, well, we're doing well overall, but our mental health category is low, or we're doing well overall, but the physical health category is low. So let's focus on that for messaging and challenges and, meetups for this month and see if we can nudge that up a bit. And so every month we're looking at this data. And actually, since we started tracking it last December, we've increased from 533 average health score overall to 546. So we've gone up, 13 points overall, which again, there are 2,500 people on the platform and we're still in the fair range, so still elevated risk, but we're trending upward. That also is what excites me the most about what we've done so far and what we're doing, is being able to see that on a monthly basis, knowing that through our efforts, the collective community's health is improving. But yeah, that's Bear Health.
So with the kind of community average scores, would there be an opportunity down the road to be able to kind of track what areas, regions of the country are doing well, what are doing poorly, kind of creating challenges, say, hey, Atlanta, you're falling behind, New Orleans is really kicking your butt. You got to start stepping it up, doing some more, and getting those people that are kind of guiding the communities to say, hey, we got to step it up. But then also to say, okay, well, what's going on in this community that is becoming an obstacle for them getting healthier, and what can we do as communities to improve that opportunity?
That's exactly what it's for, and we're bringing real-time data to it. That's I would say the unique aspect, most unique aspect of it is that we're not waiting 6-8 months after a community needs assessment to determine what a community needs, because honestly, 6-8 months later, the community probably has different needs, right? Things are changing all the time, and so we get to see this in real time. But absolutely, the vision is, again, we've done a team challenge, and team challenges are the most engaging. People go hard for team challenges. Last year, we did the Greater New Orleans Steps Challenge, where we split the city up into the West Bank, Orleans proper, North Shore, and then there's an area called La Place, or Metairie to La Place. And then we did Team USA for those who were on the app but not in the area. And the competition was which team can have the highest average step count. And people were walking. And so I can't wait to do New Orleans versus Atlanta versus Houston versus Dallas, you know what I'm saying? And again, health promotion that isn't about just take 10,000 steps a day, eat a healthy diet. It's a part of your experience. And so, but then to your other point, learning from each city. Okay, so black people in Atlanta are doing well compared to black people in New Orleans. Let's go talk to the people in Atlanta and find out, what is it about their lives, what is it about their environments, leading to them having better health outcomes, and see if we can apply some of that to New Orleans. And we'll be able to find this out for a variety of demographics, communities, right? This rural community, and I think particularly for rural communities, will be interesting because there are some rural communities that are doing well, right? Most aren't, but some are. And so let's go find out what's going on there, see if we can apply some of those things, and then most importantly, evaluate the impact of those interventions in real time, as opposed to waiting 5 years down the road to see if the health outcomes change. We can see if the health outcomes change next month, or at least if we're trending that way or not. Yeah, I think same thing globally, right? We'll do what I really want to do, hopefully this year, next Olympics, is the Olympics International Steps Challenge, where you join your country and we go after. It was actually funny when we did the Greater New Orleans Steps Challenge last year. It was I came up with the idea in relation to the Olympics happening last summer, and so the challenge was from the Monday before the last day of the Olympics to the last day of the Olympics, so Monday to Sunday. And I used the rings and everything, and it was the Greater New Orleans. I forget exactly how I framed it, but I framed it in a way that somehow it got their attention, and they sent me a pre-cease and desist of the use of their of their logo. I was like, man, how did they even know about this? That's kind of crazy. But anyway, great challenge. And when I responded to them, I was like, hey, sorry about that. Happy to take it down. We'd love to do this officially 4 years from now, though, with an international Steps Challenge. So they didn't respond, but, it's good for the story if we make it happen. But yeah. So yeah, that's the idea. And I had no idea I would be promoting Steps Challenges and honestly become known as the walking guy. I'm here trying to create this big vision for health in the black community, build this platform and brand, and be this entrepreneur. And all I really managed to do in the first year was become known as the walking guy. And then so I figured I might as well lean all the way in, and that's why I went for the 2 million steps this year.
It say baby steps, but that sounds a little bit kind of cliche.
Yeah.
No pun intended on that. But, you got to start somewhere. And I think if you're identified as the walking guy, but, a few more steps down the road, again, bad pun, but, you're going to be identified as the guy who has significantly impacted the health of the Black community. Yeah. So, I love what you're doing, and I think it's great. And so what does aging well mean to you? We've talked about kind of health, and we talked about, increasing or decreasing that gap in lifespan for the community. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure you want to do more than just have people live longer. Mm-hmm. So what does aging well mean to you? And again, not to sound like it's a pun, and how can we take one more step toward starting it today?
Yeah, aging well. So the definition of public health is the art and science of prolonging life. And to your point, we don't just want people to live a long time, right? Because we can keep people alive, keep sick people alive for a long time. That doesn't mean that they're living well. And I think that the definition, or at least in my experience so far with this work, I think the definition is missing a component, and it's really missing a mental health component. I think the definition should be prolonging the desire to live, right? Public health should be about prolonging the desire to live, because the desire to live is the root of longevity. Right, I'm sure you know of people who have, what's your practice outside of education? Were you a personal trainer or physical therapist?
Yeah, I did some personal training. Corporate fitness was kind of the stuff that I was doing before I got the PhD and started becoming an academic.
Sure, and so you're aware that people who want it do better under the same training programs, right? Mm-hmm. Doctors talk about patients who are dealing with the same serious issues. Those who want it more are more likely to survive. Who want to survive, more likely to survive. It's because our bodies are listening to us all the time, and the body follows the mind, body follows the eyes, and all that stuff. And so these things are a bit spiritual, metaphysical, but at the same time, they're real. And that's what I really want to accomplish. That's what aging well looks like to me. It's how do we set up society? How do we set up people's lives such that they want to be here as long as they possibly can, not to miss out on the experience that we have here. That to me is what aging well looks like. It's like always wanting to be here till your last breath. And that's what I'm really trying to create, just on a personal level, beyond Bear Health. And obviously we'll do that in some capacities through Bear Health. But that's what aging well looks like to me. People who are not just happy, fulfilled, and want more.
That's where purpose comes in, I think, a lot. We talk fair amount on purpose here. And when I spell purpose, I always put a capital P, because I think it infuses a little bit more of that spiritual piece that you made reference to. Yeah. And, that wanting to do more than just kind of live longer.
Yeah. And it's the society's job. I mean, we are society, so it's our job to create that environment, because it is going to be dependent on the environment. We're not going to be able to, at scale on an individual level, will this into existence and convince everyone to join along in this mission to live a purpose-driven life. Again, we'll be able to get certain folks, but on some level they were probably already destined for that type of, they just needed one little nudge here or there. But how do we get it to where the majority of people, because of how we structured the society, want to live a long time and want to create that? This isn't to say we create an environment where everybody's having just like a blissful time because they have everything that they need. It's like, how do we set it up to where people are looking for challenges because they are looking for growth, and then we're looking to move our population forward in ways that we haven't even thought of yet, And so that's really, to me, is what the ideal society looks like and what aging well really looks like. Because it isn't obvious that we're going to have to, this may be a bit extreme, it's not obvious that we're going to have to die if we don't want to very soon, right? Someone said that the first person that will live to 200 has already been born. And so there are a lot of advances being made right now that will extend lifespan if people want that. So then it begs the question, how do we get people to want it?
Yeah. And to want it and do something with it, because we can live longer and we can hit that 200-year mark, but if we're not really doing anything to further mankind, what have we really accomplished there?
We will get bored with that. Yeah. And mess something up, and just so that we have something to do. And so instead of having to let things fall apart and then solve that problem just to feel like we have an engaged life, how about we figure out how to make sure that everybody has their basic needs to reach their full potential, and then see what the maximum potential of human beings are from there, as opposed to the other one. Sounds kind of toxic.
Not great goal. So I ask this question of all my guests, and you've kind of alluded to a lot of it already, but what are you doing personally to age well?
What am I doing personally to age well? Yeah, so eating less often is what I understand to be the most powerful way to extend your lifespan. So that's the first thing I do, intermittent fasting. I eat about 6 hour window, I would say, like on a regular basis. Sometimes I do extended fasts, 5 to 7 days. And this will be a fast from kind of like everything, phones, food. I'll drink water on these fasts. And I drink water during my intermittent fasting too. You do kind of need to drink water like it's your job. And part of why you're feeling hungry often is because you're dehydrated. So definitely make sure that you're drinking water. Complete side note, but important for when people are deciding to go on a fast. That feeling of hunger is primarily driven by a hormone called ghrelin that is released based on your regular eating schedule. So if you're accustomed to eating at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m., your body's going to release ghrelin so that it stimulate hunger so that you will eat. If you skip breakfast, your body will still release ghrelin, and so you're going to feel like you're hungry. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your body needs food or nutrients. You probably already have what you need, right? And so just a mental thing that people need to be aware of if they start on a fasting diet. So that's one thing. I simplify my life a lot. I have 3 goals, at least right now, and I'm sure my life will get more complex once I'm done with this kind of early stage, giving birth to Bear Health. My health, my business, and my family, more or less on special occasions, is what matters to me right now. And that simplicity, being able to focus, minimizes not only the number of distractions, but the number of issues in your life. And I know that not everybody has that opportunity, but again, it depends on what you want and what you're willing to sacrifice. To want something is to be willing to sacrifice everything to that end. That's what it really means to want something. And so that's kind of like where I am right now. And so, but that has helped my mental health tremendously, because I'm not dealing with the complexities of, or as often with the complexities of, relationship turmoil and things like that. Again, I'm not saying this is the way to live forever. I don't think so. But it is best for what I'm trying to do right now, which is maintain focus on finding the best solution to this problem. And ultimately to age well, like I try as hard as I can every day, so that at the end of the day, on no level am I judging myself. I think before I didn't really receive compliments well. I wasn't like anti the compliment. I just didn't really care, because honestly, this isn't my best. I'm not saying it's not good or admirable or recognizable. And it wasn't actually until I started building this company, and it just requires your absolute best. You can't compete with the world of companies if you're not outworking people, if you're not getting more and more creative than other people. And so I've had to try my absolute hardest. And it's really taught me the importance of like focusing on the activities that give you the best chance at the outcome that you desire. It has absolutely helped me understand that the outcomes that I want in my life are not entirely within my control. And I think we often get caught up trying to essentially control the outcome, or we get anxiety around like if what we're going to do is going to lead to the outcome that we want. Is it worthwhile if it's not? So I've gotten to where what makes me happy each day, what makes me feel each day, is that I've done as much of the work as I can that I know gives me the best chance at the outcome. Not that guarantees the outcome, but that gives me the best chance. And so if tomorrow everything fails, I'll wake up, I'll go on a run, I'll have some water, maybe go hang out with a friend, go find a job. Like being okay because I know that I put it all in there. That's really important. And in a perspective that I don't think that many people carry. You still carry a bit of anxiety around what's going to happen. Yeah, perspective is the most powerful tool that we have. We get to choose how we experience this. We get to choose how we experience it. And if your current perspective makes you feel like crap and hate the world, like you can literally change that. That's so crazy. Nothing has to change about your external environment. You can just change the way you look at that, and all of a sudden it's a better experience. Or at least one that you can better contend with. Right, because contending with something voluntarily is much different than contending with it when you feel like your back's against the wall and everything is stacked against you. Even if it is, again, choose to see it the other way, so it give you the best chance at getting out of it. Those are 3 things that come to mind. Yeah.
Great words, and I don't know if we can add much to that. Is there anything we missed talking about? Anything else? One thing I do want to kind of underscore as we get to the end of this conversation is how can people connect with the app? How can they connect with you? Are there some specific links that you want to share with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like I said, download our app, find out your health score, use access code Jeff Armstrong, either all caps all together or all lowercase all together. And then follow us on social media at Bear Health. I can't promise that all of the content will be about health, but it'll be worth watching for sure. We have this social media intern. She's great. And I actually don't even know what she posts every day, but I've been getting positive feedback from from our community on what she does. So follow us on Instagram and pretty much all platforms at Bear Health. That's BEHR Health. And then follow me personally at Kwame Terra, KWAMETERRA. You'll probably either see me working or running at some point in that content, because that's pretty much all I do right now. But yeah, and then find a way to have a great time while you're here. Because I'm interested in knowing what it is that makes people feel like life is worth living. I asked this question on my Instagram page the other day and got some interesting insights, because at first my goal was to maximize health, but now my goal is how do I maximize the desire to live. That's the new focus. Again, I think it's more central to the original problem I'm trying to solve anyway.
We'll have to have you back on once everything kind of gets rolling and get an update on the program. And then just kind of keep underscoring on this podcast what we can do to kind of help your community, the communities around the globe, and just make everybody healthier and better equipped to contribute to society for 200 years. So
every time I say that, people are like, I don't want to be around for 200 years. And again, that's where we need to dive in.
And there's a challenge there. I know as popular as Elon Musk is lately, but I heard him in an interview, I don't know how recent it was, but he was asked, about, living longer like, Brian Johnson is trying to do. And he's like, no, I don't want to live forever, because that works to the detriment of society. Mm-hmm. That if we live too long, we don't get new ideas. We kind of get caught into the same rut.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
But I think your approach is going beyond that. We're trying to give people purpose and a reason to continue to live, to try and grow society. I think we're just on the cusp of a spiritual evolution. Mm-hmm. We've kind of evolved physically as humans. Now it's time to evolve in that spiritual dimension where it's we're more other-centered and we're more community-oriented and united and all those types of things. And I think we're kind of on the potential of doing that. Yeah. And I know your app is working to do a good part of that.
Absolutely.
So keep doing what you're doing, keep in touch, and keep aging well.
Yeah, we'll do.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.